Many of those royalties are based on laws that are 100 years old, which is fucking crazy. You as an artist, you don't know shit. That's reality. They don't know shit. They just want to be on the label in which their favorite artist has been. Many times we find ourselves trying to push people into using crypto, which is like, what does it mean? Like, what the fuck?
I invest $500,000 in you. I want to get 40% of everything that you do for the rest of your life.
Spotify is so good as an app, and it's so valuable as a service. 8 hours a day in Spotify, and the others days like 5 minutes a day, but they are paying the same. So who decides that? Why NFTs did not work for music? Because the value adding is so high that it is worth it. Question mark.
Welcome to Minted. We've got an insane episode today. Today's guest is a Web3 pioneer and a co-founder of Songs, a music protocol and marketplace that's reimagining the entire industry. Songs allow three things: fans to own a piece of their favorite artist's success. Imagine being able to buy a piece of Thriller when it first came out. Artists to get paid instantly as they grow, and record labels to thrive in a more open, transparent ecosystem. He's building this with his co-founder Ricardo, a label owner with 3 gold and 2 platinum records and over 500 million streams under his belt. In this episode, we dive deep into the dark side of the music industry and what really happens when artists sign with labels, why music NFTs failed, and the future of music ownership, distribution, and AI's impact on all of this. Whether you're a founder, artist, investor, or just a fan of music, this episode will change how you think whenever you listen to your favorite song. We met in a CryptoPunks group chat, right? And so it was actually like 2 or 3 a.m. in Singapore, and I slept really early the night before for some reason. I just woke up. I couldn't go back to sleep, so I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna wake up and do some work, right? And then I was just like looking through Telegram a little bit, and then I saw you posted this like a short message about songs, a song swap page. I was like, wow, this is actually really interesting. So I started to read up more about it. I was like, oh, maybe I could get you on the pod to just learn more about it.
Cool.
That was actually how I kind of chanced on your thing. Because before Songshares plays, I personally tried, I think a few others like Royal, I think it's called Royal.io. I also tried Catalog a little bit. And there were some more, you can say famous ones that had celebrity partnerships. I'm not sure if any of them are still around. I know some of the celebrity ones have already closed and died off because I got some friends who invested in them. So I was just curious to know, like, for Songshares Plays, I read your master plan and everything, but for people who are listening, maybe you can dive a little bit into that and why you guys created it and the angle you guys are going at it for artists, for fans, for labels.
Well, first, I really like as well the CryptoPunks Act. It's something that I do not post a lot, to be honest. So because I'm more like the cave guy, like builds. I'm really into building product and designing product. But I know many people there in the chat, like personally. It's a nice group of people, the CryptoPunk community that yet like has like these ideal of Web3. So it's one of the best communities all around yet.
For sure, yeah.
And well, regarding songs, there are a few other like companies that keep alive yet. Some XYZ like keeps it is yet like working, but yet with this idea of collecting music NFTs, which is something that we not rejected, but we thought a lot about that. Like, what does it mean for music, and what does it mean for a user to buy something that is digital that you will own? And how that experience of buying something digital applied to music, and the rest of like satellites of experiences that could be built on top. That was super important. Aside like Royal and Catalog, I think Royal changed their perception of how the business would be working in the last like years. It could be like I would say 7 months or something like that. The idea of fractionalizing royalties was for them this is my point of view, of course, not executed correctly, but they were pioneers. So they were like starting to play out with this idea of using NFTs for music. So it is complex and it requires trial and error. But Royal for me, it's a trial and error and what not to do, because they spend like crazy amounts of money there, and the output, well, they are yet trying out, and they shift directly to this idea of royal rights and IP on top of a track, on top of music, and that's a way more deeper, like, and complicated market. We have as well this story protocol, which is another protocol that is working on the same area, but in a more generic way. Catalog, I think they continue alive. They shifted to this idea of the Bandcamp, decentralized Bandcamp owned by artists, and we are pretty aligned with the core basics of that idea, like the platform that it's literally owned by the stakeholders that provide value on the platform. It doesn't have to be artists. This is part of our research. So yeah, that we did before even like diving into like building a company out of that. It was just me and my co-founder Ricardo thinking about this concept, and a deep idea was like why NFTs did not work for music.
Yeah.
This simple question started to create like more layers of conversations out of curiosity between each of us. We were like, okay, what does it mean to buy music without all the layer of Web3? It's just many times we find ourselves trying to push people into using crypto, which is like, what does it mean? Like, what the fuck?
Exactly.
Maybe we don't need to push anyone in the same way we don't need to push anyone to use the internet. It has to be the same level of abstraction. So we went to that point, like existentially, what does it mean for music to something for like this to exist? And the research came more into the music industry side more than in Web3, because we know both Web3, it's a super interesting, super efficient system in order to drive capital, in order to own something digitally and to prove that you own it. And this is super important for everything that requires ownership, and music is that part, but no one cracked it yet regarding the type of interactions that happen on the stakeholders of music, which are many and more complicated and with different levels of a regulated, contractual regulations. The research, like in the music industry, let's say there are like a few stakeholders in order to go on a simplified basis. There's the artist that generates the music. Many times they do collaborations with other artists. Then there's the label, which is an optional stakeholder. But in many cases, as soon as you grow up and you start to have like these other values that the label provides, press, networking, knowledge of the operational layer of music, how to do concerts and so on, it is a super valuable stakeholder. They curate a lot, so they are the curator of music. It's super important. In the same way, there are curators of art, galleries. The label is like a gallery for music. And then when one of those two stakeholders want to get this curated music that they provided, and they would want to start like capitalizing on that music, there are like a set of different legal wrappers that we use on our day-to-day, which are like the royalties. And many of those royalties are based on laws that are even 100 years old, which is fucking crazy. Yeah. But it makes sense. It has been an evolution. It's not just, it doesn't need to be like that. It's just the music capitalization. It's something that evolves step by step with new advances in technology. So as when the CD player came in, then stuff came out. Like suddenly people were burning CDs in order to exchange music. And then Napster came in, and then stuff came out. The idea of the digital streaming came in, and suddenly more laws like jumping on top. So the idea for Songs, like, okay, what does it mean, this next level of technology, and how it's gonna affect the actual, not the 10 years ahead, like the actual market of music? We detected a specific opportunity, let's say it like that, in the value chain of music, in which like this element that comes after the label, it's a type of company called distributor, or aggregators. Essentially, what this type of a entity does is it's like the police for music. You cannot upload, for example, one track directly as an artist or as a label to Spotify. There's no path for that. You need this to interact with this type of entity. These are like, they do all the authenticity validation, identity validation. They provide different type of checks based on their contractual relationship between these companies, and then they publish the track to X amount of DSPs. DSPs are called the digital streaming providers. And then they gather the money that those streams generate through a specific type of protocol that it's called DDEX. DDEX.
Okay, wow, I didn't know that. Okay, wait. So the distributors, say it again, like they publish it to the streams. You said something about streams, and then to DDEX. Is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Okay, I didn't know that at all.
It's crazy. I didn't know it as well until I started diving into the technology. There are many layers there.
Okay.
The protocol, the DDEX protocol, it's a deep one, has been in the build for 20 years. And it's like the Swift for banking, you know, like this internet protocol for transactions,
yes,
but for music. And it has its own set of rules, and you need to properly use it in order, if you want to publish your music on DSPs.
Right. Who created the DDEX?
It is an I don't know how to explain it in English, and I remember between like big different companies, Apple, Spotify, and governments. It's like some sort of the nearest possible of a standard that we have in order for like this kind of like technological relationship. But it has been with conflicts during the last many years, to the point that we are now trying to, like approaching a standard, which is, I call them pipes, because when you're a distributor, you have a communication pipe, which each one of those like a different companies, if we can call it that. Spotify has a pipe. Apple Music has a pipe, YouTube Music has a pipe. With each of those, you communicate on one specific type of like rules. That is yet like not as standardized, and it's a pain in the ass in every matter. What you need to understand regarding distribution is that through those pipes goes like the stream on a live basis, how much the stream was like generated, in which currency, in which country, who was playing it, all the metadata regarding the track, and so all happens many times a second, depending on the streams and depending on the DSP. We detected that vector was way more interesting and way more complicated, but at the same time, the next step to be purely innovated, in which like leveraging Web3 technology had a lot of sense. So we reached that conclusion after like a year and a half of research and talks with other co-founders from our past, like one of our angel investors like we was in these talks like, okay, this makes sense, to trying to advance to not commit the same error that other companies did in the past, which would be for sure. Why we are doing this. And so we started this idea of, okay, how we need to innovate here in this layer on the music ecosystem, and we started to understand the potentials, or what would be the impact of innovating there, and what would be, for example, the costs of to understand the shape of what we were needing to build. Like, okay, we need to innovate this, but how? And we got a simple conclusion that it was like, okay, there are easy steps in order to be done progressively that matched like an interesting path for a company, an interesting project that we wanted to dive in, because suddenly there's something really cool about songs that I really love. It is that it is made a reality by this protocol or this idea to exist, which is like a music investing. It is a very limited ecosystem, only to a few specific profiles, like labels with a specific capitalization, higher level distributors that have the cash flow in order to invest as well directly in music, and the major labels, which is like Universal, Sony, and Warner, and so on. But at the same time, music is something super tribal. It connects us in a way which is like a crazy and develop like deep culture. It creates moves and fashion and artworks, and it's just so crazy. So if we had a way in which like we can permit the retail to participate directly on music via the same methodologies as they do in labels or like this distribution, that would be amazing. Like it could be an interesting market with new trends and micro niches of music that in other terms, for example, niche music cannot exist in many aspects because it is not interesting for a label because the accounting has to like go positive, and these music exists but underground or just bars, and they have their communities and they listen to them, but it's not interesting commercially. So if we can create like these ecosystems of like a fans and follower based that create synergies between their own bubble of these echo chambers, it would be amazing. So that was super cool. And the impact of like creating this layer, one of the impacts was like habilitated this, because we were thinking, okay, the first thing we need to do is just tokenize royalties. As soon as we have the whole path and we control the flow of capital, it's super easy to do that. So we started to go from the bottom of this idea of the distribution business in order to understand what we could do first on an easy basis without having to invest crazy amounts of money. And we developed this protocol, which is like the Songs protocol, which is like V1. It's a mega fast built protocol, but it's a deep one, which is thought for the future. And the idea for the protocol, it's like the distribution costs. We think we can lower them to zero, almost like virtually zero. We can create a protocol that automatically distributes all the capital related to a track to all stakeholders participant of a track, which is exactly what the business of distribution does, automatically based on ownership of those pieces. And the key problem was like how do we bridge the Web2 ecosystem, Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube Music, which is something that plays directly on US dollars, for example. And we need to jump those bridges into using the technology. So I come from deep Web3, and we were like, okay, in other protocols, these are called oracles. We can call them oracles. But in reality, what they do is just distribution for music. So it's like an oracle distributor. And we created like a layer of in which like there can be many distributors on top interacting with like the assets that live in the protocol. and paying directly to those assets. And it creates an interesting set of incentives for all participants, because you, as a distributor, you lowered your cost of your technology layer, so it's cheaper for you. You can offset risk directly to funds and finance music directly with retail capital.
Yep.
Which is fucking amazing. And you can almost automate all of your accounting because it's there on the protocol, updated like live. The problem, of course, is that the distribution technology, it's old, it's monolithic, opaque. Yeah. You won't see an open source GitHub account whatsoever at any place, which is crazy. So our plans is just, we are going to be the first distributor in the protocol. And our next step, for example, as a company, is that we will build the technology stack open source that will permit any other distributor to use it in order to leverage the protocol.
Yep.
And then I'm going to stop here. I've been talking a lot.
No, it's good. It's good. Yeah, super interesting. I mean, I can tell that I like that you guys thought about this from like a first principles level first, just to see like, is Web3 even required? Is crypto even required? Is blockchain technology even required to build this company? You know, and just going deep there first, because from my experience, I think you're probably deeper than me, but from my experience, I see a lot of founders, especially Web3 founders, they just throw like a Web3 in it just because it's kind of like trending. And maybe it's easier to raise money. Easier to raise money.
Right now it's complicated, but
yeah. Now it's harder. But now it's like AI. I mean, AI is easier to raise money now. So, yeah. So I like that you guys thought about it from a first principles point of view first, and then go on to build the thing. And also to look at competitors and see like what other major players have done with a lot of funding, and see where they failed at, and then you guys can learn from them. I was curious to know, because I know that Taylor Swift, she famously remastered her records, right? Okay, this is my understanding, but you probably know it better than me. So I think when I was reading about it before our podcast, it was okay. So initially, I just saw the headline, right? But I don't know the details. Like, I just know that there was some controversy around like Scooter Braun, something with the rights, something there. So when I was doing some research, I think basically what happened was when she was first signed by her label, when she was like 15 or 16, then the label owns all her music. As if it's basically like they own the product, which is the music, right? And as she got older and she became more famous, and then she became Taylor Swift, as we know her today, and Scooter Braun bought over the label, right? So Scooter Braun did an acquisition to buy the label. So indirectly, he owned Taylor Swift's music, like as if it's a product that's owned by the label, right? And then after Taylor Swift was like, but I didn't have the chance to buy my music back, and then you sold it to Scooter, and I think Scooter then, I guess, flipped the music firm. I mean, flipped the label to an investment firm and made some money there, which I guess was what happened. And then Taylor Swift remastered her records, so now it's like Taylor's version. So now she's marketing that album so everyone can listen to the same song, but on the remastered version, so she can get royalties of that. So in a way, she's kind of like manually getting her royalties back, in a way, or like she's getting a bigger margin of her royalties. That's what I understand. Is it correct?
That's what I was mentioning before, that we are living in a really not fully coherent ecosystem.
Yeah.
Because it's based on laws that are like pretty old.
Yeah.
To the point that it's like, okay, you as a label, you sign with your artists, and then in this specific case was like you sign something that they were called like 360 contracts.
Yeah.
Which essentially it's like I'm gonna give you an advance. So I pay you a specific amount of money in advance in order for you to build the product, to build the project. And then from that advance, usually it comes from this mega big like a artist. It's more like 50-50 or even 20-80, because the value adding is so high that it is worth it. Question mark.
Because usually the artist is kind of broke at the start, so when they give you an advance, it feels great. Like, wow,
And
this is a huge check for me.
you as an artist, you don't know shit. That's the reality. They don't know shit.
Yeah.
Legally, they don't know shit. They don't care. They just want to be on the label in which their favorite artist has been. Like, for example, I'm a fan of Taylor Swift, and suddenly I became a little bit viral. I want to be on the same label as Taylor Swift. Why? Because it's my idol.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna sign whatever that happens in order for that to happen. So you sign this kind of like mega obscure contracts with like hundreds of like pages in which something like that happens. But the crazy thing about that, and it's amazing that Taylor Swift did it, is that it is on top of the masters, which is just the final recording. Of course, there are many more layers of like legals on top, but the reality is that you could even do what she did, and it's amazing that that's became like an example of that. So you re-record your masters, so suddenly you have another asset that could generate money, which is exactly the same as the old asset, and that breaks a lot of stuff, and it will be a legal conflict like for many years. But essentially, in the actual market, you can do that. So you start to generate new royalties that are not the same royalties as the old one. It continues generating royalties. But if your marketing and your PR power it's high, which is what happened with Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
Suddenly, all the streams coming to this one like start to flow to the other one. Marvelous, genius. And there's like many other like examples of people trying to do that as well. So yeah.
Wow. Okay, so let's say if Songs Dash Play existed when Taylor Swift signed her first contract, let's say she launched her career on your platform, what would be the differences? Because I guess you guys are solving this, right? You guys are solving this in some way, shape or form.
Professionally, I would say that we are not ready yet for those type of artists, but it's our goal, and it's a midterm goal. We can onboard them now, and it's completely functional. The website will hold, and we will pay them whatever they do. But in our roadmap, I want to test in order to not like die out of success.
Yeah, I understand.
I want to test out like many more steps in the middle that are critical for that to happen.
Yeah.
For example, we have plans in the next coming months to mid-level artists, like not that super high level of Taylor Swift. They will be literally bringing their actual catalog from other platforms, because music is something very scarce. It's just, not everyone creates like good quality music all days. So even though there are like 100,000 songs uploaded to Spotify per day,
wow,
it's crazy. It's insane.
That's like way more than I thought. That's insane.
It's crazy.
Wow.
But the vast majority of that is crap. And there's like a lot of like AI used, many people creating just tracks in order to generate fake streams. It's just a crazy moment right now with Spotify. They are trying to solve it. Complicated. But good music is scarce. We want to treat it as a platform that first provides value, second provides trust, because you are dealing with an asset that will last for 70 years. So it's important to generate this trust layer. I'm gonna be paying you forever during the next 20 years. Sorry, 70 years, if things goes as we expect. So when we want to create this trust with artists, in which like you can bring your catalog from other distributor, 2 songs, We created even the tool for that in order to automate it, and it's super cool that we have a tool that you can just jump in the songs, go into migrations, click, and you connect you to your actual catalog. No other distributor does that. And you get your actual catalog on the Spotify. You select your albums you want to migrate, click start migration, three or four more steps, and then you're in.
Wow.
So we want to migrate more like catalog from other people and from close artists, artists who want to start like playing with this idea of integrating their communities into their ownership of their music. It's something very new. It's an hypothesis that we are testing. We deeply believe it's going to work because of this emotional bond regarding artist and fan. But it's really important for us to correctly understand how the artist sees it. How when the artist puts the specs of like I'm going to be selling my music.
Yeah.
It is something that it is new. Normally, this idea is something that was like having only on private conversations with the label, or neither even was a possibility publicly. So, what does it mean to sell part of your music? On the Web3 ecosystem is going to be completely understood because we understand this idea of liquidity and trading and so on over an asset that we don't fully understand what represents. We just like the trading aspect of it. That volume will happen, but
Yeah.
we could not start from that because if we started from that, then we didn't have the music. If we didn't have the music, there's anything in order to trade with. So we needed to start from the bottom. We will reach to Taylor Swift.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, like, I'm looking forward to when like, okay, so when I saw all these music platforms with a Web3 thing incorporated, I was excited to see like a young artist use, let's say, songs.play, right? Use a platform like that, and they become like a famous artist, and to see like people who buy, let's say, Songshares or through different mediums get, on paper, wealthy with the artist is great, but also like to ride the journey of the artist, I think it's like super cool to see. Right. I
It's
think if just
crazy.
like one artist becomes that, I think a lot of people will come in. Like you just need one like famous one, right? Like young, up and coming, new, no one knows about it, and they just bet on your platform, and you guys just meet them at the right time, and then it can just become like that, right?
I
Or is that what
fully
I'm
I
saying?
fully
I don't
agree.
know, right? Could be amazing. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
very
Yeah,
cool, very cool.
part of our next steps is that we are partnering with the people who has been. We are just finding for trying to get more profile like this. So open to like whatever, like just send me an email.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But we are partnering with some sort of curators, like people who has been in the music industry for a while, who are curious enough in order to play other platforms. There are these profiles called playlist pictures, which essentially
Playlist pictures. Playlist
playlist
pictures.
pictures. Yeah,
Okay.
playlist managers. Okay, so it's like a label because they do their curation,
Yeah.
but essentially they manage a private playlist in Spotify or like a private playlist in other platforms. So people, their playlist became so huge that people pay them for them to hear their music and to publish them on their like weekly playlist, for example, because they have such a fan base on their playlist that there is a market there.
They act as the distributor a little bit. They kind of curate a playlist and then they distribute the music.
Yeah. So
Right.
our idea is that by creating this element that is a song share, well, it's happening already. For example, you'd convert into currency the future of a song, royalties earnings. So you can pay as a musician, you can pay, for example, your mixer or your mastering. If your music is good enough, you can talk to your master and tell, hey, can I pay you with Songshares? Hear this out, please check me out. I have been working on this. I truly think it can be something. And suddenly people started to use the Songshares like that. Like, okay, this is a promise for the future, but it's a promise that it's like backed by something. It's not just the problem with Royal, for example, was that it's like, okay, you fractionalize royalties, you sell them out, but there was no payment whatsoever. That was like complicated. So the protocol we created ensures that the whole path is going to be paid. By the way, we are going to pay the first batch of like earnings of tracks in the next two weeks. So that's going to be fine. But it's a super small elements because at the very beginning of the protocol was like, I don't know, 2 albums.
Okay, so let's say, okay, this is like my simplified understanding of the music industry, and let's say with Web3, but please tell me where I misunderstood. Right now, let's say if I'm a new up-and-coming artist, 20 years ago, I was signed to a label. The label thinks I can, sing really well, I can perform really well, right? And then they get me to sign a contract, so I was signed to the label. Let's say they give me an advancement of like $500K, $1 million, whatever the amount is, right? But in the contract, usually the thing that I guess they want to is that they want to make sure that, hey, if you become a big artist, because we're going to market you, we're going to distribute all your music, we're going to do the back end for you. If you become big, we want a huge margin of that through your merch sales, through whatever we can sell, basically, right? So the artist is like, oh, wow, like because I'm kind of broke, so this $500,000 to $1 million is going to change my life. And then let's say they become like a super famous artist. My guess is that because they get a lot of sponsors, so they get all these like famous brands like Chanel, Dior, or whatever, then they sponsor them. Maybe even the label gets a cut. Do they get a cut? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
They get a cut? Wow, it's crazy. Okay, so they even get a cut of that. But they seem like they make a lot of money, but actually it's a lot of it's sponsored, I guess, right? But the label is the one that gets like the big chunk on the back end because of all the okay. I'll say from a business standpoint, to me, it's almost like this is a startup, like young founder. I as a VC, I tell you like, hey, I invest $500,000 in you, but for the rest of your life, for everything that you do, I want to get 40% of everything that you do for the rest of your life. It seems to sound a bit like that, but am I far off or close to it?
You're super close. What you do is just you sign for X amount of tracks in X amount of time, and you need to, even though there's no like albums, for example, you sign a contract that you will, for example, the next 3 albums is gonna be, even though they are not created, you sign with us. I'm gonna pay you this money, and the next 3 albums are gonna be with me. And there are way more layers of complicatedness on top of that, but in reality, it's something like that. Like you sign, even it can be for number of tracks.
Yeah.
Like you're gonna give me 30 singles, whatever you can be very creative with that.
Yeah.
And many people, there are examples of artists playing with those agreements. Like for example, I've been cooking an album that I'm super proud of that. On that album, it's gonna be amazing. I've been doing it myself on my own, but I have an agreement with a label, and it's so good that I want it for me as an artist. And it's my last album in the agreement with this label. There are examples over there that I'm not gonna mention, in which like as an artist you create a crap album. You release it to the public, it checks for the contract with the label, and then the day afterwards, you release your mega fucking amazing album that you've been cooking with your money from the label, but legally checks.
Right.
So this place has been over there forever. And essentially what we've been doing is a trade. It's so complicated to gather the money out of the royalties that we needed to invent as like legal wrappers in order for that to happen on every aspect of the business of music. Even though that it is like interesting enough in order to we continue pushing things forward. And this is another push thing forward. Regarding what you were mentioning before, let's say Songs is a research experiment in which we don't want to marry any idea. We want to test them out super fast and see what sticks. This Songshare is just the first one, and it's open enough in order to test many things. But the cool thing about Web3, and I've been before jumping into Songs, I've been participating on another protocol, and we were thinking how we can bring the legal layer on chain pragmatically. What is missing? What is missing on Web3? It's just as soon as you go outside of code, it's slow. How do you add these social capabilities of humans interaction, which is what you are missing? There are many things that are subjective enough that cannot live because of pure code logic. It's just nonsense. Essentially, those things are the core pillars of society. How do we interact between each other when we are going to do a working agreement? We draft them out and we put it on a contract. How we can bring, as soon as we crack this out, we will have as well many other consumer apps that are depending on that. One of these projects was Nation 3, and it was a research project regarding how could it be built a whole ideal network state jurisdiction, and how would be the protocol that could be open enough in order to create agreements between end parties that live on chain and can be enforced in any aspect. So it didn't end up well, the project, but we developed a super interesting layer of technology that is open source. It's there, everyone can use it and rework it into the next iteration. I'm leveraging a lot of that in Songs because music has these legal layers, as we were mentioning, that habilitate stuff. If we can tokenize those legal layers, that in the Songshare is just the phonographic streaming royalties, which is one specific type of royalty in music. There are many other types of royalties, but our goal is the easiest royalty to be tokenized. That's why we selected that. And that's why we started the company with that. It's okay, what is the fastest thing we can do in this ecosystem to start generating money and to start gathering users?
Wow.
And then afterwards, there are sync royalties, which is for example, when a track appears on cinema, on a film, that generates money for the user. When tracks appear on radio, on television, there's sync royalties. There are ticketing royalties. There are mechanical royalties. They are attached to a specific stuff depending on its jurisdiction. But that is operational madness. Essentially, what happens is that there is a government agency almost in every country that their work is to collect those royalties and then drive them back to distributors or to labels or directly to the artist. And there are many other sub businesses in the music industry that their only job is to streamline that collection. But it's really complicated to automate and really complicated. It's so manual right now. It has been evolving in time. We want to approach that, but we need to be mature first on this initial level that we control, and we know we are three in the team, and we built them out. So we know it can be built small.
There's different types of royalties, and you guys are selecting, let's say, a lower hanging fruit based on the expertise that your team has, and you guys will go after that first, and then slowly build out from there to the whole thing. Wow, that's really interesting. I've been seeing some clips online about how, let's say, very famous artists, people talk about how they are they don't actually make that much money. And I think there's this rapper, I can't remember his name. One of his famous songs is called Edamame. Not sure if you know.
Yeah, so
Okay, so
What's
he
the
went
name?
on.
Let me
Yeah,
check.
I can't remember his name, but he went on a podcast. I think he's like a semi-famous artist. He has like 10, 15 million streams of Spotify a month. And he went on a podcast and he shared that he barely makes any money off Spotify. He almost makes no money off Spotify. He talks about how he mainly makes money off cinema royalties. So he said like sometimes randomly, if a movie or a show use his song, even for like 30 seconds, he gets like maybe $300,000. So he said that part he makes like some money, and the rest is like through some merch that he does himself. And he said like concerts, he pretty much just break even. And he's like, I'll say he's like a semi-famous, like 15, 20 million streams a month. This like pretty, like I think quite a lot of artists would dream for that, right? But he was saying that Spotify is pretty much not existent for him. I was like, wow. I mean, for
Yeah,
me, I was surprised. For me, I was really surprised. Yeah,
it's true. It's
yeah,
they pay super small. At the same time, you need to be there. It's a nice dilemma. You cannot no be there.
yeah,
You need to be there because it's the platform. It's amazing. Spotify, just you click it, you the experience of Spotify. It's really complicated to innovate out because it's so good as an app, as a platform, has been has been has been developed for so many years on a specific niche that it's really complicated to build on a jurisdictional level because Spotify has like specific agreement with specific distributors and specific labels on each country, whole world.
wow,
That's operational madness.
yeah, wow,
On each jurisdiction with problems on each jurisdiction. It's just the advance that they pushed. It's just well, I know they pay like very bad, but we've been as well really critical with this. Spotify changed the whole like playground regarding music. We were with this idea downloading tracks, Napster with the so the Spotify changed like the ecosystem of music for the better. For example, I really like the path that SoundCloud takes in this specific way, even though they are smaller. Because I don't like the distribution of money that Spotify does, and they could do differently. That for sure. For example, your money when you pay your subscription, the Spotify subscription is different on each country, so you pay differently. Even though inside of its country, you could have different type of subscription levels. If you start to think literally how where does that money goes and how does that money goes, imagine you have like this family subscription. It has the same level of premium, but it's a little lower in cost. So essentially, you are paying lower per person. But imagine that the difference between the family members, one hears like stays 8 hours a day in Spotify, and the other stays like 5 minutes a day, but they are paying the same. So, okay, how is the distribution of that money based on the streams that those people generate? Okay, and the other question is, how is the distribution of that money based on the total amount of streams, on the total amount of the agreements per each country? Because if you are like publishing, for example, in Spain and you publish in the United States, you as an artist, you receive a different type of royalty with different type of listening cost and different type of payment based on where you were heard. So who decides that? How it is being decided? And how is the amount of money per stream per user that you receive? That is a problem that could be deeply improved. And the way, for example, SoundCloud does is just, at least this is what they say. I'm not sure if they do it like that. They get your subscription payment and they distribute your pay through all your hearing. So it's a direct relationship with what you hear, which makes
wow.
a
Okay,
lot of sense.
that's more straightforward. I think that's like way more straightforward. Yeah,
You go to a concert, you pay for a concert, you go
yeah,
and pay directly to that person that you are
yeah.
hearing. It's your fan. it's your fan, it's my artist. That bond exists. So I deeply think that Spotify should follow that path and could improve things forwards all around. Because right now, like the money comes from to a black box. The black box, it's distributed based on question mark, and they get a cut of question mark over the amount of money. It's a and then you start to think about like who decides this, and then you get into the owners of Spotify. Who are those and who decide that? And then you start to see like, okay, let's follow the money. So they have different deals for different artists based on different countries, on different promotion levels, and I think that's completely unfair. But it's so asymmetric. So there is no direct. I don't see a realistic approach in order to solve that problem from a startup standpoint of view, because Spotify is so good as an app, and it's so valuable as a service that I wouldn't know how to approach a problem like that.
Right. Well, yeah, I think sometimes like, let's say for an outsider, you use an app, it seems easy. Let's say like Spotify. Okay, you have a bunch of music there, you press play, but behind there's such an huge operational ecosystem that most people don't even know about. Right,
Yeah,
like
it's
negotiating
crazy.
contracts with different labels, countries, laws. They have to understand all these things and also pay artists. So who knows what the actual margin is like for them behind, and maybe this is what they can pay the artists for what they're doing. And because in the past, like when there's like DVDs, right, I could see the artist making money off the DVD. Let's say the DVD is like $15, $20, but now with Spotify, it gets a bit more interesting, right? It
Yeah,
gets a bit
well,
more, yeah, it gets more interesting for artists.
it was easier. The path of money was easier because the name distribution of
Yeah,
this distributor company comes because they were distributing physical things to
yeah,
physical shops.
yeah. It's like much more straightforward. DVDs, the shop gets a small cut, and the DVD, some goes to the artist, some goes to the label. The more DVDs you sell, then yeah, it's easier to count, I guess. Easier to manage.
Yeah, it's a everyone has the accounting more clear and can be even like be tracked on a complex Excel sheet. Uh, so we are on a new ocean, and it seems that we are stuck in here in this new ocean. But the reality is that Spotify became profitable last year. It has
Crazy.
been underwater for like many years since the beginning. So
Yeah,
it's a super new business, and more it will be innovated out as well. But
yeah,
so
yeah.
yeah,
But all these big companies, like sometimes they say they're not profitable, but like, okay, for me, I'm not sure about you, but the more I get into business, and the more I grow my own business, and I meet some people who run bigger businesses, and sometimes I think like, wow, like this is what is shown in the news, right? But maybe behind, they were already profitable, but they could like maybe get higher payouts to the CEO, higher dividends, this and that. So in a way, they were profitable like 5 years ago, but they just want to, you know what I mean? It depends on how they structure it behind.
hide them out.
Yeah, I can't hide them out. So honestly, like unless you're in it, sometimes I feel like who really knows what's actually going on? But this is kind of the headline, and usually there's an agenda. Maybe they want to plunge the stock for something or increase the stock for something. Like who knows, right? Who knows what that is for? Um, yeah, okay. I was curious to know, like maybe we can segue a little bit. I was curious to know, like, what's your take on AI's impact on music? Because it sounds like you guys have thought about it.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. That's a good question, and people are freaking out in the music ecosystem these days because well, people who earn money out of music, they have like these deep catalogs of like music that does not like a disappear on streaming and on royalty generation, like I don't know, Freddie Mercury or Michael Jackson. It is music that will be continue without doing any effort, generating capital during the next 50 years. So that's an asset. How do you control that in time based on an element that will generate any type of music, any type of artist with new type of styles that it's going to be able to mimic all your old catalog as this. So all the rules of IP on all the rules of a capital generation out of all the ways of monetizing is going to be not breaking but reshaped. My take is that it's not going to be that big on these initial years, that there is a lot of hype right now, and that tools need to be built yet, and to build quality music is going to take time. I have the feeling that during the next 1-2 years we are going to see specifically better tools for creativity. Like, for example, there's a lot of the work of music production is just diving around with loops and uploading libraries, and it seems that everything is just going live. But the reality is that, by the vast majority of time, it's just staying you in the studio, playing out with sound. A lot of that effort will be way more efficient with those tools. Like, hey, I need this drum snare with this hi-hat. Give me this hi-hat but a little bit more crystalline. Lower it down. Instead of you going through all your library one by one, tick, tick, hearing it out. So that's going to be the creative process. I think is going to be way more interesting. That's first step. And then afterwards, if projects that really achieve to capitalize on their source of information, but I'm not a hard believer of IP. Okay, I think we live out on a remix, on a constant remix in life, and that's healthy. And I understand it needs to be controlled, but this has been a nice discovery in my life. I live in the West world, and in the West world there's this idea of you have to be original in order for you to be. But the hard reality is that you don't need to be original. You can copy a good seed, and then you will find your pace in the process of copying others that are like people that you think are good. People miss a lot of good stuff trying to find our pure originality. It's like, okay, you can gather information from many sources and someone create another monster that it's a new thing out of many information. So I deeply see the AI as a system to create new paths for creating these monsters of different sources of information. The creativity aspect is so huge and so more fast that you don't need to own the technical aspect of it in order to create these monsters. I like the monster idea.
Right. Wow. Yeah, I actually with AI and let's say Web3, like, I find that when I was looking through your profile, you have quite a multitude of experiences. Like I also saw you did like this company called PickZen, where you help people to, if I'm not wrong, the value proposition was you help online shoppers pick products easier, something like that,
Yeah.
right? And I also saw that you did some, like you're working with this like Web3 agency on the design part, and now you're doing songs play. And let's say for someone who wants to work in Web3, or let's say wants to work in AI, and obviously this is just like a technology. You can layer it with layer it with an industry. So I say it could be in health, it could be in whatever industry that a person is interested in. What would you like? What's your advice on, let's say, skill sets to acquire, or like how should someone go about looking for jobs? Because right now, like I got quite a lot of friends I know, let's say from school growing up. I mean, now we're not so close, but sometimes from distance, like school reunion, you meet them up, and I see a lot of like people getting laid off recently, right? But the thing is, like in Web3 and AI, I think people are hiring like crazy, right? Because the demand is so high. So, from your point of view, how do you feel like people can better position themselves to find a job in this area?
I can tell you what I value in a person, because that's my main driver in order to work with anyone. Me getting out a job in the past, and right now, if I'm gonna hire the next hire in Songs, what I value in that person. And I think that would respond as well, indirectly and directly to that question. We live in a world in which like everything is so accessible these days regarding information, regarding learning, that I don't value anymore a deep technical ability. Of course, in many, depending on the profile or depending on the specific need, there's like specific rules that you need to have the experience because you are paying for the experience. But if obsession and attitude beat experience, and the tools we are having available these days, like make you way more capable in order to beat experience and to gather the critical knowledge that before was taking so many years to acquire. A person that is proactive and resourceful with their time doesn't take a no for an answer. Like, hey, we need to do this. Okay, no worries. I'm gonna check what I can do. And then that person comes afterwards and is like, okay, I've done this, I've been doing that, I like that. I got this down, I got this done. This doesn't work. This work. Trying to get out of yourself regarding what you can and you cannot do out of your learning and degree. For me, I think the path for not knowing something, I'm knowing something right now, it's mega like a packed up, and smaller it's time. So I value a lot like general knowledge, like a general intelligence. Like, hey, you are talking to someone and you understand that okay, this person, it's wise and has deep curiosity about stuff and deep learning interest without having to know, no, I know that and I'm going to be the best one. Okay, well, maybe not. Yeah, could be, maybe you're good at that, but I'm more intrigued for this kind of people that you see it on their eyes, like that are curious by default, and they have the tools in order to get into that like curiosity next states in which like they know they can achieve it, even though they do not know how to achieve it right now. But if the curiosity is at peak level for them, they will do it. I like to be near these kind of people. Yeah. Wow. In every level of my life, not just in work. Like, yeah. I deeply appreciate that, and it's more interesting people.
Something you said at the start, you said that now you don't value technical ability as much because right now the gap of learning is shrinking so quickly, especially with AI. You can just learn it so quickly. Wow. Yeah, because for me, let's say like I'm not technical as per se in a traditional sense. Like I did a small computer science degree for a while, but I wouldn't consider myself technical. So I'm more on the marketing, building business, sales side. Yeah, but I think like just the way you said it was I don't know, it kind of hit me in a different way. I don't need to be technical at all. I was like, wow, okay, cool.
Yeah, because I'm experienced myself. For example, I'm an architect, former architect of buildings, but I always considered myself a very curious person. This is like going many years back ahead. Like I got into tech because I had this other idea on the past, and I was more agile, and I was like had the time, and I started learning programming because I learned programming in architecture in order to build these complex buildings, complex facades, and so on. And then the jump from this type of programming into web was like super easy step. So it was like, okay, this is interesting. But I saw like specific profiles and a specific niche of people and mindsets when I jumped from architecture to computer science. So I was the weird in the group. Like, oh, you're the designer who knows how to develop like HTML and CSS. It's like, well, okay, you said. But at the same time, I had like a year and a half afterwards, I was like programming React completely, owning the whole thing, and it's like you were not doing that right. That can be way more efficient on a deeper level. So there are like many profiles of people who are like specifically technical people who fill their mouths with an idea of what it is to be a master on that technical specificity, technical vertical. And yeah, I think we are living in a moment in which that mastery it's been destroyed.
Yeah. Wow.
So it's critical for me the other one. Because right now, like, for example, I don't give a shit about like the server architecture part of our business. I never liked it. I like the product side of it, but it's necessary, and it has to be done correctly, and it has to be done efficiency. And those profiles are expensive in order to build architecture, like the structure of and I know the basics and I know the fundamentals of how that's I've been playing around like with AWS, DigitalOcean, and many other like players in the past, Azure from Microsoft. But I always hate that work because it's doesn't touch the user. I like to play the whole and to understand the whole flow. But we were building songs. It's like the experience of using Cursor right now. It's so resourceful, intense in terms of efficiency. For me, it doesn't add any value to know every command of AWS in order to deploy an S3 bucket or EC2 machine. If you play with AWS, you know what I'm talking about. It's just if we can abstract that out, which is a technical deep layer, and just think about the pure value proposition, because there's something that is abstracting it to me, or at least automating based on what I want. Hey, I need to build this setup. I need to do it with these specific specs. We are going to do it right now in this month. Suddenly, you give the CLI, and the whole thing is built almost automatically. It's so fucking crazy. So automating this kind of layers, for me, it just makes so much sense that the technical abilities start to disappear. If I had to hire like a AWS architect, I would have been spending like around like 200 per hour, like just on setting up something that could take me right now with this tool like 2 hours. Myself just clicking enter, because I
Just clicking enter.
yeah, because I've been developing. I have my cursor. It's mega trained to the point that I have like a one project just for architecture management, and I have like all the rules for how the AI should behave with the different files and the different scriptings. The app project has it's well executed, and it's gonna continue improvement. So I don't need to know how a button is made with all the logic around the button in order to create the state anymore. I can do it in one time and define correctly all the logic around that in order for the AI to understand what are my requirements, and I don't have to do it anymore. And for that was a person. I've been that person before. I've been working in other companies doing exactly that. So I was like at the very beginning of my programming career, I was like shifting from architecture to programming, and I was doing front-end development for a while. And it takes a lot of time in order to develop a proper UI, well done, executed, with the proper effects and so on, that it's compelling. Right now, it's just it's been abstracted out completely. So it's yeah.
I think just the way you said it, because just the way you said it, it's like that 2 hours versus hiring someone, taking the time to do it, managing that person for months. Maybe that person don't get it done. It's easier for you to just press enter.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
it's
crazy.
of course it's not that like
I know, I
a
know, I know. Yeah, I know. But I'm just saying, like, just that. Yeah, it's crazy.
but
Wow.
operationally,
Yeah,
it's you think about a lot. For example,
yeah,
a lot. We started to think, okay, how we are going to grow the team. It's like I don't know if we need to grow the team.
yeah,
I truly don't know. Like
yeah,
for example, we are going to start like as I was mentioning before, we value a lot not the technical team, but the marketing and human resources, like
yeah,
human people, like having human relationships and interacting with artists directly. That's something that's super like high value these days. Like proper networking, creating these relationships. Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, the skills that I guess a lot of like new entrepreneurs who do more like e-commerce, they want to stay behind the screen and not even meet anyone in person, which I understand. I understand. Like, I used to be a bit like that, but those skills are really important just to be able to connect with someone, meet in person, do sales. Very
yeah.
very important. Wow. Yeah, like I saw this tweet from your co-founder. I think his Twitter name starts with G, Guaya something.
Guayaba.
Whatever. And yeah, he talked about how like you guys I think went to talk to some VCs I think last year, and a lot of them were asking you guys about when you guys are gonna launch a token, right? And I think he talked about how like his thoughts around that and how he felt like you guys weren't looking to launch a token anytime soon. At least from my understanding, not sure if that has changed. But I really liked that you guys are so thoughtful about everything before you do something. So as even earlier, just now in the start of our podcast, you talked about how even before you dove into the music industry, you were thinking, okay, wait, like let's understand it first and to see if there's even a necessity to use blockchain, to use Web3, to use crypto right now, right? Do we even need it or not? And I really like that you guys are so thoughtful about it, which I think is quite rare to see in space. I feel a lot of people are just like launching a token to raise some money and hope it pumps a little bit, which I understand. I'm not trying to say it's bad, but yeah, it's great to see like that there are teams that are like really building something fundamentally well, and have quality growth. You guys I think you guys have quality growth because when
I
I
think
saw
so.
like I feel like wow, you guys have like really quality growth, which is very important, I think, for sustainability.
I think so as well. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing, man. Yeah, thanks so much for jumping on that. I know it's a bit past the time that we set, but I just thought to
All
finish
good.
out.
I'm enjoying it. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, thanks so much for jumping on the pod. And just before we jump off, maybe you can share a little bit where people can find you, your socials. And I also know that you are doing a little bit of a funding right now. Maybe you can share a bit
Yep.
about that too.
Well, we are like songs-tools.com. And in Twitter, it's songs_tools. Songs_tools. Please follow us. It's an amazing project. If you are an artist planning to launch a new album or a single, do it. It's going to be the best experience on the market right now in order for you to launch the album. And it's a platform that is public, so you can just have your profile there and put the rest of your like platforms, like a link tree, but for music. If you're a label, we can automate you almost all your accounting, and we will be building in the next 6 months crafted ad hoc experiences in the product. So if you're interested in this, please reach out to us directly because we want to directly build this with you. As Alvin was mentioning, the token thing. I'm gonna enter that topic for a moment.
Yeah, please.
We are living some sort of a crisis of identity in Web3. I'm gonna go deep into this because it touched me. I entered this space at the end 2016, beginning of 2017. At that moment was like this ICO fever that they call it. The cycle of that moment was the ICO thing, ICOs. At that moment was like, okay, this ecosystem is crazy. Like, what the fuck? What does it mean? Tokens going up and down. It's like, what? It doesn't mean anything. I don't understand projects like getting stupid amounts of money. I've been in the startup ecosystem for a while. Suddenly, like people raising 20 millions without a product, just on a landing page was like, what? I couldn't understand. What happens is that I'm now, during this last cycle, I missed those times because at least people were creating something of value, and we were like thinking into interesting ideas based on core values of what it could be done with this technology. Right now, it's just so extractive, so scammy, the whole thing, that there's just a few projects doing interesting stuff because the regulation like stopped from this kind of project to not permitting for them to exist. So suddenly what is regulated is just launching a token that doesn't represent anything but culture, which I agree with that. I am aligned with these ideas. But behind the concept of I'm going to do a meme culture that represents something, the extractive ecosystem in which we live right now, it's so toxic and so disgusting that I'm not aligned at all. So I'm deeply willing for that other past that at the same time I thought it was like a little bit crazy. Right now I miss it with with passion, in which like people were building cool shit and they were throwing out money out of like pure experimentation. So token wise, we opt out of the token first because we were pretty serious trying to achieve the project, and the experiences we had like if you manage the token is that well you get rich quick, which is good, but the project dies and nothing happens with that. Of course we want to make money. It's not something that we didn't talk about that, but we are pretty serious about making this a reality and providing something that is really valuable from day one, not just like something that is going to be built for 2 years and then afterwards you launch a product that do not know if it's going to work or not. And it's been proved. You can go into the website and you can, as an artist, you can have your music and we will start paying you directly right now. That's first thing out, and you can sell them. You can sell your music to your fans right now. So at some point, the idea of the token, or at least the how we think about that, is just we deeply believe that these platforms should be owned by the stakeholders. We started the talk with this phrase. This is platform. The utopia of Web3 is that the platforms will be owned by the stakeholders that like own those, that use those platforms, in order to drive the vast majority of value to those stakeholders, because we will be able to automate almost the rest of that. That the ideal of Web3 disappeared. I don't know why the fuck that. It's important that we bring them out back. Earning money out of that, because that's important, and create healthy incentives. But right now, it's we missed him out. And the image of Web3 is just Trump launching a token, which is like, what the fuck? I cannot hold that. I can understand that. So, going back to songs. At some point, our plan, we have a proper plan based on the experience we had on how that can be achieved. Of course, there's like many hypotheses there that we need to test, but we know that if we launched, for example, a DAO since day one, that something could happen. But I participated in many DAOs in the last 3 years, and all of them die because of the same problems. First, decision making is so complicated. So nothing happens. The mantras and the communities are amazing, but are amazing if you have a specific set of rules that cannot be changed. So all of us are aligned by those rules already. If the rules are not there and need to be built yet, creating a DAO is just so counterproductive. You won't do it. You will die out of operative madness. So in order to create this project, there's okay, we have a lot of gaps of information that we need to test out. And then when we have the rules clear, tested and running, then we will create the DAO. We will create a DAO based on the users and the on-chain activity that has been happening on the product without the incentive of a token. Just pure usage. And then we will decide how we distribute that token based on healthy incentives that truly provide a future for the ecosystem to continue existing based on those rules. And we didn't find it yet, but we know it's completely possible, and we know it can be done that way. And it is the healthy way. And it assures us a future of economic incentives as founders. It assures that the project can be agile at the very beginning. Of course, we need capital, and that's why we are raising capital right now. We thought a lot on which ways, and we do not got it yet. We want to deeply integrate labels and artists on these early stages, but we do not know, and we don't have the regulatory structure in order for that to happen. So we are thinking into ways of doing it. But launching a token, it's so complicated. And it created a set of incentives that are not aligned with what we want to do. If we achieve something, if we find out a key, we will do it for sure. Any ideas around that, please send them out. Gordo at songstools.com, please. And we are completely open to work with people aligned with these values. And we are looking for investors aligned with those values. It's happening right now. We are gathering a small pre-seed round, if we can call it like that. Any detail or people who are interested in participating out of this mantra and to create proper value, please reach out. We want to have a talk. Yeah, I'm going to stop there.
Great. Amazing. Yeah, that's a great way to wrap up. Yeah, thanks so much for coming on. And yeah, let's do it again sometime. Maybe when you have Taylor Swift on.
Yeah, please. if you know, if you know any artists that are interested, please onboard in song.
For sure.